Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to my second video. I decided to film it on my phone this time so I don't look crusty as hell. But the problem is my phone has like negative space on it, so hopefully like this doesn't like cut out in the middle of the video because I don't have like enough filming space. But anyways, how y'all doing? I'm stressed personally. I just had like a really long talk with my advisor about applying to graduate schools, and I forgot that graduate school means spending another like 40K on more school. Um so I'm a little bit stressed. We're a little bit high strung today, but we're gonna get through this video and it's gonna be great. So first thing I wanted to talk about was Bernie dropped out of the race, and I cried a little bit because personally, like, I think that his policies are exactly what we need during this time of crisis. Like his whole idea about like Medicaid for all, I think is really important, and I think we really need that right now. I mean, like a 17-year-old girl in California died because she had COVID-19 and was rejected treatment because she didn't have insurance. So that just proves, well, I guess proves that we really be needing some free Medicare right now. So to you, Bernie Sanders, it was a fucking honor, man. Announcement number 2. It was National World Health Day on Tuesday. So I hope y'all thanked your healthcare workers and your nurses and your doctors and everyone. I want to say thank you to them because they are risking their lives every day to go out there and, help us with this horrible pandemic. I wanted to talk about how to properly put on / take off a mask. I know a lot of you guys probably think, oh, that's like stupid. Like, there isn't a right or wrong way to put on a mask, but there is. And you are wrong that you said that. Because there is a right way to put on a mask without getting germs in your face. So, I'm about to show y'all how. But first, I want to explain the differences between two types of masks. So, like, the masks of the minute right now are N95 masks. And they look like this. I wanted to talk about how to properly put on / take off a mask. I know a lot of you guys probably think, oh, that's like stupid. Like, there isn't a right or wrong way to put on a mask, but there is. And you are wrong that you said that. Because there is a right way to put on a mask without getting germs in your face. So, I'm about to show y'all how. But first, I want to explain the differences between two types of masks. So, like, the masks of the minute right now are N95 masks. And they look like this. So you can kind of see it says KN95, but it's backwards. Since you're in the video camera. But these are the masks that the health professionals are wearing. I got this from China like really early on, because I was scared that like the whole thing with shortages of masks was gonna happen. I was also like paranoid that this would like become a lot bigger in the US than it was at the time, and I was correct. So I kind of got lucky that I was able to get some of these beforehand. But anyways, I want to explain the difference between the difference between masks, and I wanted to explain like kind of like what the N95 mask is a little bit so y'all can like understand why they're important. So the N95 mask, essentially, it's a respirator like rating letter class mask. It stands for non-oil. Like that's what the N stands for, and N95 is non-oil. Meaning that if no oil-based particles are present, then you can use the mask in work environments. And other mask ratings usually are R, which means resistant to oil for like 8 hours, and P means oil proof, like 100%. The 95 stands for, so it's like the percentage of efficiency. So masks ending in like 99 have a 99% efficiency rate. Masks ending in 100 or 99.97%, that means like that they're that percentage of efficient. Um, and I also wanted to explain like their zero point 0.3 microns. The mask filters out like contaminants like dust, mist, and fumes, and the minimum size of 0.3 microns of particulates and large droplets won't pass through the barrier. Like, it's really thick. There's like, I think 3 or 4 different layers, and you can kind of like, it's really hard to see, but if I could get my camera to focus, you can kind of see there's like multiple layers in here that are just sewn together. So the material is like the filtration material on the mask. It's electrostatic and it's like non-woven polypropylene fiber, which is supposed to be like really hard to like penetrate. And sometimes like they have valves on them. Mine doesn't have a valve on it because I think those are a bit more expensive, but the valve on it, like that you see often, it's like, it looks like this. I can probably edit in a picture of one with a valve. But it's supposed to make like breathing more easy if it has a valve, because like honestly these things, like these masks, are not super easy to breathe in. They're supposed to be really tight around your face, so sometimes that can make it hard and you get lightheaded. And usually these are reusable, but only reusable up to 3 or 4 times, so it's kind of like inefficient in that sense. And like if you have N95 masks, I would just recommending like reusing it until it breaks, because there's not like a whole lot of them like right now. So I wouldn't throw it away after 3 or 4 like uses at this point. If you can like get more uses out of it, get more uses out of it. I would like to show you this other mask I have. It's not N95. It's like a cloth mask. I bought it in China while I was there. It has a little strawberry on it. It's really cute. This does not filtrate as well. It's a lot thinner. It has like 2 layers, 2 cloth layers. But the good thing about this is that it's reusable and washable, and it's better than not wearing anything at all. So I would keep in mind that even if you don't have an N95 mask and you have like a mask like this, that like this is better than nothing when you're going out, and I would just recommend wearing it. And a lot of people are making like masks like this right now just to wear out. So I can like put a link down below if y'all want, like, or are interested in like making your own like cloth mask. But yeah, so I want to explain to y'all how to wear a mask properly. So we gotta start with step 1, sanitize those hands. Or wash them, but you know, make sure there are no germs on them first off, because if you're taking out your mask after it's been like freshly washed, or you know, a new mask, I would just recommend, you don't want to get no germs on it or anything like that, so clean those hands of yours, folks. And then after that, the way you want to put on this mask is you want to try to avoid touching like the inside of it. I mean, it's okay to touch the outside when you're putting it on. I would just wash your like hands again after. And I would avoid touching your face. So usually what you do is you gotta put them behind your ears and then try to like raise it up a little bit like that, bend it to your nose, and then just avoid touching like this as much as possible, and the inside, try to touch like the edges. And then when you take it off, stick your fingers in the loops and take it off like that, instead of just like pulling it off. Like, you do not want to just be like touching it like that, because especially after you've been outside, you don't know what's on this. This is clean, so I'm touching this because it's clean right now, and my hands are clean. But either way, before you put on a mask and after you put on the mask, you want to wash your hands. Because that's important right now, folks. Washing your hands. Moving on to the next topic of discussion. So I just recently found out about this, like this past week. There is a very high chance that your pets can contract COVID-19. And it's not like you get it from your pet, but you can also give it to your pet. And they're not even 100% positive yet as to what animals can and can't get it. They did some tests. I think they found out like ferrets can get it. And I believe cats can get it because I know like 3 tigers and 3 lions tested positive for COVID-19 at like a zoo in New York. So it's very likely that your cats can get it. They're not sure if dogs can get it. Like they've tested dogs for it before, and like they know that some dogs can carry it, like have really, but it's like very, very small trace amounts of the virus in dogs. So they're not even sure if it's just like if it's like something that you need to be like worried about with your dog more so than like your cats. But I would still, like, my personal suggestions is like to keep an eye on your pets when you take them outside or put them outside. I would try to keep your pets away from people and keep them as clean as possible right now. I also read like veterinarian suggestions, and they said like if you're sick with COVID-19, don't let your pets outside and try to have as little contact with them as possible just to keep them from getting anything, because we really don't know, like I said, what type of animals can carry this or actually get sick from this. So yes, be aware of that. Y'all, I was really about to just die a half second ago because my phone just decided it was gonna like take away all space available on my SD card, and I had to like figure out why the fuck it was acting like that. And it made me so mad, but I figured it out and I deleted like a whole bunch of stuff off of it. And now I have so much more space to film. So I'm happy. But anyways, I'm just so relieved, I guess. All right. Back to what I was saying. I want to start talking about the tensions that have been going on recently between Trump and the WHO. So essentially this kind of started from early on during the pandemic. Before it was even named a pandemic, the WHO was indirectly criticizing the US government for the way they've been handling things. So they were specifically like saying, if you're thinking about reopening anything like anytime soon and you have a whole lot of cases still, don't do it. They were like, don't do it. And Trump kept saying he was going to do it. So the WHO got a little bit annoyed there. Also, like the WHO did not agree with Trump putting in a travel ban on January 31st. There's specific reasons for that, which I'll get into in a sec, but like I personally think like the WHO had no other choice but to criticize the US for the way we've been handling things, like because we have not handled stuff well, personally, in my opinion. And it's the WHO's job to advise countries on what to do. Like they can't force the government to do things, but they can advise against doing certain things or advise for doing certain things. So it's like their job. But Trump responded to like their criticisms with this. He said, "The World Health Organization receives vast amounts of money from the United States, and we pay for a majority, the biggest portion of their money." Sadly, this is true. I don't like admitting that Trump is true, um, or like saying the truth, but he was there. Like, we do give who the largest portion of money. Um, so I mean, I had to go through at least 100 or more so invoices of different like funds that who has received from different countries, and it took me so long because I was so like driven on trying to prove like the point that Trump is wrong, but then I just found out that was right. Like, we do give the most amount of money to the WHO. We give about $57 million a year to the WHO, and that is a lot more than most countries give. I'm telling you right now, most countries give less than what I pay a year for my college tuition, and I pay very little for my college tuition. So it's a little bit depressing, I guess. Um, but anyways, Trump continued by saying they actually disagreed with a criticized my travel ban, and they were wrong, and they've been wrong about a lot of things. Um, yeah, the WHO did criticize his travel ban, like I said before. They responded to his travel ban by saying restricting the movement of people and goods during public health emergencies is ineffective in most situations and may divert resources from other interventions. Um, so they were really concerned with the fact that like China wouldn't be receiving like imports or things from the US that they still need. Um, if they like went through with the travel ban. Also, the thing I have is that you can't just call a travel ban and then call it good. Like, you can't just be like, all right, job's done. No more problems because we have a travel ban. Like, we need to have been doing more. Like, we should have been doing more at that point when we put in the travel ban. Like, we weren't even doing any form of testing on people. Like, I wasn't even really tested when I came to the US. I got screened, which means the CDC just asked me a bunch of questions. But like, honestly, I was like the only person in the entire line of people that I was in who got pulled aside by the CDC and asked all these questions just because I was complaining that I had a cough. Um, but I do believe like a travel ban would have eventually been necessary. So I guess in that sense, I do agree with Trump, which I hate to admit because I don't like agreeing with him particularly. So yeah. Okay, but then Trump continues saying, and they had a lot of information early. They seem very China centric. And my response is, yeah, because this virus started there and because their methods for controlling it worked. So of course they're gonna say try to emulate like the restrictions that went on in China. Like, I just it's common sense that they're going to keep emphasizing like the way China did things because they were able to get their cases down in like record speed. Um and then Trump continues to say that they missed the call, they could have called it months earlier, they could have known, they should have known, and they probably did know. Um First off, the WHO didn't know until January 3rd about COVID-19 even being a thing. And then the WHO declared a national emergency on January 30th. I think though that there are some like complexities to the situation. Like, Taiwan had tried to warn the WHO early on about this, and the WHO wasn't really able to do anything because Taiwan isn't a part of the UN. So I think in that, like, given that, I think that they could have, like, maybe listened to Taiwan. But also, I don't know how much earlier they could have taken action. Like, you have to go into China, they have to, like, go assess the situation, and there's also certain criteria. Um, that they have to follow in order to declare, like in order for it to be large enough to declare an emergency and also to declare a pandemic. Um, and I also think when Trump says like they had months to call it, like they had a singular month to call it. Like the months plural is not there. So Trump then continues to say, so we are going to be looking into that very carefully, and we're going to put a hold on money spent on the WHO. We are going to put a very powerful hold on it, and we are going to see. Which I think is stupid. Like, I think if you're going to decide to cut money to the WHO, like, during the pandemic, that really says something. And then Trump says, when they call every shot Ron, that's not good. I'm like, okay, brother, they have not called every shot Ron. In fact, they warned us like 3 weeks before we started taking action to take action. What did you do? You, like, literally put a bunch of money into the economy just to watch it tank. So don't even try calling out people for calling the Ron shots, because that right, you got your rights taken away for criticizing people on like calling the Ron shot, because you know how many times you called the Ron shot? At least 95% of the time. So then a reporter asked Trump, is the time to freeze funding to the WHO during a pandemic really, and then Trump interrupts her saying, no, maybe not, but I'm not saying we're going to do it, but we're going to look at it. And then him and the reporters get into like a little argument, and he just said that he was, like, he just keeps saying like he never said he was going to do it. He says like, oh, we're going to look into it. We will look at ending funding or whatever. Like, what does we're going to look at it even mean? Like, I don't understand what he means by we're going to look at it. Like, you're going to look at like what's happening right now and take funding away from the WHO? You're going to look at this pandemic, see how all these people dying, and take money away from the WHO, who's providing ventilators to people in Africa? You don't make much sense there, my guy. And Trump then says, over the years, even they seem to be very much biased towards China. That doesn't even make, okay, to me that is completely wrong, because actually during the SARS outbreak, like the WHO like heavily criticized China for keeping it a secret. So they have not always been China-centric. I think, yes, the WHO could have been a little bit more harsh on China this time around as well, but also y'all have seen all the hate that China has already been getting from other countries. Like, I feel like that's enough to, like, that already is saying enough, like, to China that they fucked up. I don't think the WHO really needs to go and criticize them as well. And then, so the WHO actually responded to Trump. Like, they didn't personally say, you, Trump, fuck you. They kind of tried to at him indirectly again. I think like they're honestly trying to avoid any political conflict, and they're not trying to make this political, so they're trying to like not directly at people. But a reporter asked the general director Tedros, I'd like to get your response to President Trump's threat yesterday to cut funding to WHO, and specifically to the 3 complaints he had, which were the WHO criticized the travel ban to China, and that the WHO could have called this earlier and probably did know, he said, and also that WHO was very China-centric. Could you respond to each of those? And also, since like Tedros's speech, like in response to, it's not really a speech, but his response to that is like really lengthy, so I'm not going to read everything he says. I'm just gonna like to comment on read certain parts and comment on certain parts of it that I think are very important. But I will link a full transcript to that press briefing in the like summary section below or whatever you want to call it, so y'all can actually read the whole thing if you're interested. But Tedros responds by saying, "We don't want to waste time. Of course, when you've confronted with a new virus like this one, a very dangerous virus, let alone a dangerous and serious public enemy, number one like this, we do regular assessments. So we will do our assessment identifying the strengths and the weaknesses, and this is a tradition in WHO, and we will do that. This is what we call the after-action review. WHO wants this more than any organization because we want to learn from our mistakes, from our strengths, and move forward. But for now, the focus should be on fighting this virus." I think it's very important that the WHO says this and that they are going to try and look into their mistakes on how they handled it, because I'm sure that they did make some mistakes. It's their first pandemic they've ever dealt with, considering they weren't formed until after World War II. And the last pandemic that any person has dealt with on this planet was during World War I. So this is their first time. And like, yeah, Trump also made mistakes, but there's a difference between actively making mistakes and lying about it, / trying to cover it up, and actively making mistakes about choosing profit over people versus making mistakes about when to make calls as to whether to call it a national emergency and whether to call it a pandemic. Like, I think those are a little bit more excusable mistakes to make because there's pre-written criteria about when they're supposed to do those things, and that maybe they'll change it now that they know that things like this can get really out of hand really quickly. Trump won't admit to any of his mistakes, and he's not going to do a reassessment of anything that he's done because he keeps denying that he ever made mistakes. Also, this whole like after action review is not like bullshit that like Tedros just made up just to, you know, get him out of a problem. He like, it's literally a 59-page document about evaluation and team building, and like I didn't get to read like all of it, but I can talk about it more in the next video. If you guys are interested, you can like let me know if you want me to talk about it more, because it's very long and lengthy and I didn't think I'd be able to fit like everything about it into this video. But I can definitely try to do it in the next video. So Tedros continues by saying, "If you remember, that's why on February 11th, we called it public enemy number one. This was 13 days after we declared the global emergency. I will suggest two things to the world. Number one, at national level, we should be able to work across party lines, across faiths, across other differences that we have, across ideology." Which I 100% agree with. Like, we need to be making an effort to cooperate with each other despite our differences, because there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and a lot of people and a lot of governments are using this virus just to cause more horrible things and to take action towards people in ways that we shouldn't be right now. So I definitely think you should not be like, you definitely should be like trying to cooperate with other countries at this moment, because we're all in the same fucking boat at this point. Also, Tedros says, when there's a crack at the national level between political parties, between religious groups, or between other groups, that's when the virus gets a crack that it can exploit and defeat us with. So number one is the national unity, working across party lines. I was a politician. I know how difficult this could be. I know it. Although it's difficult, it's the right thing to do. At the end of the day, the people belong to all political parties. The focus of all political parties should be to save the people. And I really actually love that. Like, like that he said all people belong to all political part like all people belong to some form of political party and all political parties should be for saving the people. Like I really think like that is such a beautiful thing to say. The sad part is though that it's too like hopeful because a lot of political parties are not for saving all the people. A lot of political parties are for saving a small percentage of the people. Um, so it's very sad, I guess. Um, and then okay, this is gonna be a really lengthy, long paragraph, but I'm gonna read it. So please do not fall asleep on me. But he then says, please don't politicize this virus. It exploits the differences you have at the national level. If you want to be exploited, if you want to have many more body bags, then do it. If you don't want many more body bags, then you refrain from politicizing it. My short message is please quarantine politicizing COVID. The unity of our country will be very important to defeat this dangerous virus. Without unity, we assure you, even any country that may have a better system will be in trouble and more crisis. That's our message. Unity at national level. No politicizing, no need to use COVID-19 to score political points. No need. You have many other ways to prove yourselves. This is not the one to use for politics. It's like playing with fire. So more than ever before, national unity is important. If we care about our people, if we care about our citizens, please work across party lines, across ideology, across beliefs, across any differences for that matter. We need to behave. That's how we can defeat this virus. And then I skip a couple paragraphs. And then Tedros continues saying, second, global solidarity is very important. When national unity succeeds, global solidarity will be easier to form. I will tell you a story. This is in the 1960s and 1967, if I am not wrong, when the eradication of smallpox was declared. I was 2 years old because I was born in 1965. The former USSR and the United States came together and agreed to eradicate smallpox and brought the whole world together with them. Okay, then Tedros continues saying, we will have many body bags in front of us if we don't behave. When there are cracks at national level and global level, that's when the virus succeeds. For God's sakes, we have lost 60,000 citizens of the world. Even one person is precious, whether they're younger or older. More than 1 million cases. What are we doing? Is this not enough? It's more than enough. And then he says, I know I didn't address your question directly. I don't think that's necessary. We shouldn't waste time pointing fingers. We need time to unite. And what I'm saying is not in vain. I have seen leaders who are preaching about this, many leaders for the last 3 months. I am just joining them, and we can make it. Let's unite. Let's unite. Which I have to say, true. We really need some unification at this point, my guys. Like, this is the only way we're really gonna get through something like this, is if we all like can like work across boundaries. So then another reporter asks, thank you for taking my question without referencing the criticism from President Trump. You've already dealt with that. I did want to ask Director General, sir, when doing so in the midst of an unprecedented global emergency, when you do get criticism from world leaders, and perhaps President Trump won't be the last, does that really create a setback for you? I think we can argue that moral suasion, your moral authority, is one of the most powerful, if not most powerful tools you have, but when that is eroded, does it make it more difficult to operate and save lives? Then just very quickly from the beginning, I remember you've been advocating travel and trade restrictions, and governments seem to have been ignoring that to a very big degree. Even here in Canada, we now have interprovincial restrictions, so if that happens, does that chip away at your moral authority? Thank you very much. So Tedros responds with, I know that I'm just an individual. Tedros is a dot in the whole universe. Issues targeted at me, personally, I don't mind. I prefer to really focus on saving lives. I've said it many times, we're losing people. Why would I care about being attacked when people are dying? Compare the two. We're losing lives every minute. Please remember that more than 60,000 deaths. I'm not sure if that number is accurate. I would estimate that we have more deaths. Um, which, like, in fact, he was right. The deaths were actually higher. As of yesterday, we had about 95,700 deaths. So, yeah, he was correct when saying they're probably higher by now. And then he says, why would anyone in their right conscience think about this personal attack? Ignoring the bigger challenge we're facing as humanity, my focus is saving lives. We don't do politics in who, we don't. We care for the poor, we care for those who are vulnerable, and we regret when we lose lives. That's where we should focus. I'm an individual, I am no better than anyone who is suffering from COVID. Which honestly, I'm sure that the WHO probably does do politics to an extent, but just because they do politics, does that mean we should all of a sudden, like, start not listening to their advice, jumping on planes, and going to parties? No! But then Tedros continues saying, maybe for the first time I would make this public. Even death threats. I don't give a damn because it's personally targeted to me. 3 months in the same situation. What makes me sad is I said it last presser. When the whole Black community was insulted, when Africa was insulted, then I don't tolerate it. Then I said people are crossing the line. When it's personal, even death threats, I didn't care. I didn't even respond. When as a community, people start to insult us, that's enough. That's enough. We cannot tolerate that since I don't have an inferiority complex. When I am personally affected or attacked by racial slurs, I don't care because I am a very proud Black person or Negro. I don't care even about being called a Negro. I am. That's what I am from some quarters. And if you want me to be specific, 3 months ago, this attack came from Taiwan. We need to be honest. I'll be straight today. From Taiwan. Taiwan, the foreign ministry, also knew the campaign. They didn't dissociate themselves. They even started criticizing me in the middle of all those insults and slurs. But I didn't care. 3 months. I say it today because it's enough, but still they can continue. I don't care because what I care about is when the humanity is insulted, when we don't care, when we have more than 6,000 body bags. Which I think, like, the one big thing I have to say about this was that it was unnecessary to say the death threat came from Taiwan. It just enforces the fact that the WHO may have political biases towards Taiwan, since it's not a part of the UN. Like, I think he personally just could have ended it at I've received death threats. Like, he didn't have to say where they came from, is partially what I'm saying. But aside from that, like, he makes, like, some good points, like, and say, like, he doesn't personally care about being, like, threatened about his life. He just doesn't like it when someone uses him to threaten the whole Black community, which, you know, I agree with too. Like, I personally don't mind getting insulted. I mean, I probably would say something, to be honest, but, like, I care more when, like, people insult my friends or, like, you know, things like that, or, like, my family or something. So, like, speaking of the Black community, now that we're done talking about Trump and everything going on with the WHO, I want to talk about how COVID-19 is disproportionately affecting the Black community. So I want to slap some statistics on y'all. The Black community makes up like 15% of the state population in Michigan, and they also represent 35% of the people diagnosed with COVID-19. This means that in Michigan, they are 133% more likely to contract the novel coronavirus relative to, like, other races or ethnic backgrounds in the state. Um, and they also represent 40% of all deaths statewide. Um, which, so let's compare. White people represent 25% of the people diagnosed with COVID-19 in Michigan, and they represent 26% of the deaths. But they make up 75% of the state population. So it doesn't really make like sense why. Well, if you first look at it, it doesn't really make sense why the black population is suffering more in Michigan. Also, in Illinois, there's like, similarities. The black population represents 16% of the state, but 30% of people who are diagnosed with COVID-19 in Illinois are black people. And in Chicago, the black population represents 70% of people who have died from coronavirus. So that's really high numbers. And like I said, like people, I guess when you take a first glance on it, people don't necessarily know why. I'm about to tell you why, and it's not about any genetics, let me tell you. So essentially, because the black community has a large population of people with health problems such as diabetes and heart disease, that puts them at a larger risk for COVID-19, and also like at a larger risk of dying if they catch like COVID-19. But a lot of people don't know why the black community is suffering from these pre-existing health problems. And that's because they're more likely to live in neighborhoods where there's not that many like healthy like food options. There's not like recreational facilities to go and work out. There's not a lot of like, it's not like generally safe in a lot of areas. And this is mostly due to the historical legacy of redlining and segregation, which is still deeply implanted in our society today and is terrible. Additionally, the black population is more likely to live in like densely populated areas. So like if you're living with a lot of people or in a very packed apartment building, like it's definitely gonna lead to a virus spreading more easily. And also the black population represents 1/4 of public transit users. Also, the black population is less likely to have like equitable healthcare access. So like hospitals are farther away, pharmacy is not as good, and it's harder. That means it's just harder for them to take care of themselves because the health care resources are like just criminally, quote unquote, criminally inadequate in their neighborhoods. And it's really sad. And I think like we definitely need to take a step up and try to change that. Also, a lot of black people like work essential jobs, like bus drivers right now. That's essential. Travel is essential for some people right now still. They also, a lot of them work as food service workers, which is essential. Janitors, essential. And cashiers at grocery stores, essential. Also, this is something I really want to address as well, is like there's a lack of empathy towards minorities in the medical community. There's a lot of like racial bias towards like the black community when it comes to like them seeking medical care, and that makes it makes like one, people not want to seek medical care as much if you're being talked down to by a doctor all the time. It makes you feel stupid. Also, like I guess an example I kind of want to talk about is, this was a really long time ago, and it's the Tuskegee experiment. It happened in 1932, but it continued for a really long time, and basically it was a study done on a population of black people with syphilis. And they were essentially during the time they were just being studied. They wanted to, like, medical community wanted to study syphilis. So they told, like, this population of Black people, like, oh, like, if you are involved in our study, we'll, like, get you, like, medication like ibuprofen and things like that, and, like, when you die, like, your burial costs will be, like, on us. The problem was that eventually during the experiment, because this experiment had lasted a long time, the life-saving drug penicillin, which helps cure syphilis now, was developed. And so these people who were part of this experiment, this Black population that was part of this experiment, wanted to go and get access to the penicillin because, you know, who would not want to cure syphilis? It's a horrible disease. But the problem was every time that they went to pharmacies, even pharmacies outside of their state, they would be on this list of people that weren't allowed to have access to the drug because the medical community wouldn't let them because they were part of this experiment. And it was really, like, incriminating. Like, they weren't allowed essentially to have access to a cure for this disease that would eventually kill them. And a lot of them died because of that, and a lot of their kids and their family members suffered because of that. So eventually in 1972, I think it was in 1972. It was in the 1970s for sure. Like, the president finally was, like, made it an official apology about it, and, like, they got some justice for what happened. I don't know if I would say they got enough justice for what happened, but because they suffered a lot. Like, syphilis literally destroys your brain. It destroys, like, muscles in your body. It's just a really terrible disease. But yeah, I wanted to end on that note. It's kind of a little bit depressing to end on that, but I definitely think that the medical community needs to address these problems. I think they need to make it easier for, like, minorities to access healthcare. I think they need to have more empathy in the medical community for minorities, because if you don't, then it's going to drive minorities away from wanting to seek help. And sometimes people really can't afford to do that. So, yes. But that is how I wanted to end my video, y'all. I'm going to be posting another video Monday. I'm going to try posting videos every Monday and Friday. And I'm trying to get better at making them, but I'm still kind of awkward at it. I'm going to try, like, my shot at editing videos too, because there's a lot of shit I want to cut out of, like, the clips I've made. It's taken me, like, 2 hours to make this, and there's definitely things I need to cut out to make it shorter, so y'all aren't sitting here for, like, 34 minutes like last time. But yeah, I'll see y'all in the next video.